Commander Lee Hyun walked through the quiet halls of Earth Central Command at 3 in the morning. The night shift was always peaceful, with only the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep from monitoring stations. He liked these quiet hours when he could think clearly about the hundreds of human colonies scattered across the galaxy, but tonight felt different. Something was wrong. Lee Hyun stopped at the main communication console, where dozens of green lights showed active colonies. All green except one. New Eden's light blinked red, indicating no contact for 12 hours. In 20 years of service, he had never seen a colony go completely silent. "Officer Kim Jae-won," he called to the young technician at the nearest station. "Run a full diagnostic on the New Eden channel." Kim Jae-won's fingers danced across the keyboard. His face grew more worried with each test. "Sir, all our equipment is working perfectly. The problem isn't on our end." Lee Hyun felt his stomach drop. New Eden wasn't just any colony. It was home to over 2 million people, including his sister's family. They sent messages every week like clockwork. His niece had just started university there. His brother-in-law ran a small farm on the northern continent. "Deploy Probe 77 Alpha immediately," Lee Hyun ordered. "I want eyes on New Eden within 6 hours." The automated probe shot through hyperspace faster than any human ship could travel. It carried the most advanced sensors Earth had ever built, designed to survey new worlds and check on distant colonies. Lee Hyun paced the command center, checking his watch every few minutes. Lieutenant Park Min-ho arrived early for his shift, finding Lee Hyun still waiting by the communication board. "Commander, you've been here all night. What's happening?" "New Eden went dark," Lee Hyun said simply. Those 3 words carried enormous weight. Colonies didn't just go dark. They had backup systems, emergency broadcasts, and multiple ways to call for help. The probe's first images arrived as a data stream on the main screen. Park Min-ho gasped and took a step backward. Lee Hyun felt the blood drain from his face. New Eden City, which should have been bustling with morning activity, was nothing but a crater. The gleaming towers where his sister worked had been reduced to twisted metal and melted glass. The university campus where his niece studied was a field of ash. The farmlands stretched out like a burned wasteland under an orange sky thick with smoke. "Sir," Park Min-ho whispered, "the radiation readings are off the charts. This wasn't a natural disaster or an accident." Lee Hyun's hands shook as he zoomed the probe's cameras across the 3 continents. Every city, every town, every small settlement had been systematically destroyed. The energy signatures were unlike anything in human weapons databases. This was alien technology, designed specifically to kill. "Check for survivors," Lee Hyun commanded, though his heart already knew the answer. The probe's life scanners swept across continents that once teemed with human life. The readings came back flat. Nothing. No heartbeats, no thermal signatures, no signs of life anywhere on the planet. 2.3 million people had simply been erased. Park Min-ho worked frantically at his station, trying to recover any data from New Eden's final hours. "Sir, I found something. The colony's emergency." Recorder was still transmitting when the attack began. The hologram projector crackled to life in the center of the command room. A young woman appeared, her face streaked with tears and dirt. Lee Hyun recognized her immediately, Kim So-young, one of New Eden's communication officers. Behind her, alarms blared and people screamed. "Earth Command, this is New Eden Emergency Center." So-young's voice cracked with terror. "We have massive ships emerging from dark space. They're not responding to any of our communications. They're not even acknowledging our surrender attempts. They're just killing everyone." The image shook as explosions rocked the building. Through the window behind So-young, enormous alien vessels hung in the sky like dark mountains. Their weapons fired continuously, turning everything below into fire and ash. "Tell my family I love them," So-young sobbed into the camera. "Tell Earth that we tried to be peaceful. We tried to—" The transmission cut to static. Lee Hyun stood in the silent command room, staring at the empty space where So-young's image had been. She was the same age as his niece. She had dreams, plans, people who loved her. Now she was gone, along with everyone else who had called New Eden home. Admiral Choi Dong-wook arrived within the hour, summoned by the emergency alert. He was a veteran of the first contact wars, a man who had seen humanity's darkest moments. But even he went pale watching the New Eden footage. "Sir," Park Min-ho reported, "our intelligence division intercepted hegemony communications. The Alien Alliance held a vote 3 months ago. They decided human expansion needed to be stopped before we became a galactic threat." Admiral Choi's jaw tightened. They chose New Eden as their example. Lee Hyun looked at the tactical display showing human colonies across the galaxy. Each green dot represented millions of lives, families like his own, people who had left Earth to build better futures among the stars. The aliens had murdered an entire world to send a message about human expansion. "What's our response, Admiral?" Lee Hyun asked. Admiral Choi stared at the images of devastated New Eden for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold as space itself. "They wanted to send us a message about expansion," he said. "It's time we sent them one about consequences." The news of New Eden's destruction spread across human space like wildfire. Within 6 hours, every human colony, every space station, and every outpost had received the emergency broadcast. The images of the devastated world played on screens in homes, offices, and ships throughout the galaxy. But something strange began happening in the hours that followed. Across dozens of star systems, massive construction facilities that had been hidden for decades suddenly came online. These weren't the civilian shipyards everyone knew about. These were something else entirely. Fleet Admiral Nam Tae-hoon stood in the command center of Lunar Base, watching status reports flood in from across human space. His weathered face showed no emotion as facility after facility reported active. Status: Project Lazarus was finally awakening from its long sleep. "Sir," reported his aide, "we're receiving confirmation signals from all 73 hidden facilities. Full production capacity will be online within 12 hours. Nam Tae-hoon nodded slowly. For 30 years he had overseen the secret construction of humanity's true industrial capacity. Every human world had been quietly building not just one shipyard, but dozens. Hidden in asteroid belts, concealed inside moons buried deep beneath planetary surfaces, an entire Shadow Fleet production system had been waiting for this moment. The Admiral activated the emergency broadcast system that would reach every human. In the galaxy, his image appeared on billions of screens simultaneously. "Citizens of humanity," he began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Today, the Alien Hegemony Alliance chose to test our species. They wanted to see what happens when humans are cornered. They wanted to know if we would fight or flee when faced with extinction." He paused, looking directly into the camera. They're about to receive their answer. Captain Yu Eun-ji had been commanding a simple cargo transport when the emergency broadcasts began. Now she found herself reassigned to military duty, standing on the bridge of a massive construction platform orbiting Saturn's moon Titan. She watched in amazement as the shipyard's outer shell split open, like a flower blooming. What had appeared to be a simple mining facility was actually the largest military shipyard ever constructed by human hands. The hidden construction bays stretched for kilometers in every direction. "Captain," called out Engineer Lee Bong-soo from his station, "the first dreadnought is ready for launch." Through the massive viewing ports, Yu Eun-ji watched as humanity's new weapon emerged from its construction bay. The ship was unlike anything in the civilian fleet, a kilometer of pure destruction covered in armor plating and bristling with weapons that had never been seen in the galaxy before. But it wasn't alone. Across the Sol system, identical shipyards were revealing themselves. Mars had 6 hidden facilities. Europa had 4. Even tiny Ceres had been hollowed out to hide a massive weapons factory. Each one was launching ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built before. "My God," whispered Communications Officer Park Se-jin, staring at the tactical display. "How long have we been building these?" Yu Eun-ji smiled grimly. "Since the day we first met hostile aliens 50 years ago. Humanity learned early that peace requires preparation for war." The alien hegemony's scout ships, positioned at the edge of human space, began reporting massive ship movements. Their long-range sensors detected approximately 200 vessels mobilizing near Earth. The hegemony's military analysts were delighted with these numbers. General Zex Thara of the Hegemony High Command reviewed the intelligence reports with satisfaction. 200 ships, this will be easier than destroying New Eden. Deploy our third fleet, 5,000 vessels, should be more than enough to eliminate the remaining human colonies. What the Hegemony didn't understand was that their scouts were only seeing the ships humanity wanted them to see. The real fleet was being assembled in hidden locations throughout human space, far from alien observation. On the agricultural world, of New Harvest, farmer Kim Duhan watched as his grain processing facility opened hidden panels to reveal weapons manufacturing equipment. His combine harvesters were being converted into mobile factories. His storage silos contained not grain, but raw materials for ship construction. "Never thought I'd be building warships instead of growing food," he told his neighbor, Lee Youngmin, who was busy converting his livestock facility into an ammunition plant. "The aliens made their choice when they murdered New Eden," Youngmin replied, welding armor, plating with practiced efficiency. "Now they get to live with the consequences." This scene was repeating across hundreds of human worlds. Every colony that had seemed peaceful and agricultural was revealing hidden military production capabilities. Luxury resorts became training facilities for ship crews. Universities became research centers for new weapons. Even retirement communities became logistics hubs for the war effort. The speed of the transformation amazed even the humans involved. Within days, the entire species had shifted from peaceful expansion to total war production. Every citizen found a role in the massive military buildup. Dr. Han Sua had been researching plant genetics on the frontier world of Green Valley. Now she was working 18-hour days developing new explosive compounds in a laboratory that had been disguised as a botanical research center. "The aliens thought we were weak because we chose peace," she explained to her research team. "They never understood that choosing peace and being capable of peace are very different things." Factory worker Choi Min-ki had spent 20 years building civilian transport ships on the industrial world of New Foundry. The same assembly lines now produced military vessels twice as fast as the old civilian models. The workers knew every bolt, every wire, every system. They just built them for war instead of peace. "We always had the capacity for this," he told, the new workers streaming in from across the system. "We just used it to build homes and schools instead of weapons. That was our choice. The aliens took that choice away." As the weeks passed, the true scale of humanity's response became clear. The species that had seemed so focused on peaceful expansion had actually been building the largest military-industrial complex in galactic history. Every colony, every outpost, every seemingly innocent civilian facility had been designed with dual purposes. The Hegemony's intelligence services began reporting impossible numbers, not hundreds of human ships, but thousands, then tens of thousands. Their analysts checked and rechecked the data, unable to believe what they were seeing. Fleet Admiral Nam Tae-hoon stood in his command center, watching production reports flow in from across human space. Each number represented not just ships and weapons, but the collective will of an entire species that had chosen war over extinction. "Sir," reported his aide, "total production is exceeding all projections. At current rates, we'll have over 500,000 combat vessels within 6 months. Nam Tae-hoon nodded. The aliens had wanted to test human resolve before humanity became dangerous. They were about to learn they were already 50 years too late for that. The forge of war was awakening, and it would not stop until justice was served. The first signs appeared on a Tuesday morning, 6 months after New Eden turned to ash. Deep space monitoring stations along the Hegemony border began picking up unusual energy signatures in the void between star systems. At first, the alien technicians dismissed them as sensor glitches or cosmic background radiation. They were wrong. Commander Zarvek of the Hegemony Early Warning Network stared at his displays in growing confusion. The energy readings were too organized, too uniform to be natural phenomena. They moved with purpose, following precise formation patterns that spoke of military discipline. "How many contacts are we tracking?" he asked his sensor operator. "Say approximately 50,000, sir, but the number keeps growing. 50,000 ships was more than the entire Hegemony battle fleet. It was impossible for humans to have built such a massive armada in just 6 months. The intelligence reports had spoken of perhaps a few hundred vessels at most. Vice Admiral Kang Min-soo stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution, watching the tactical displays update in real time. Each new hyperspace emergence brought another squadron of human warships into formation. The display showed a 3-dimensional map of space filled with countless green dots, each representing a kilometer-long instrument of war. Admiral, reported Navigation Officer Kim Tae-young, the final wave of construction ships have arrived from the outer colonies. We're at full strength. Kang Min-soo nodded without taking his eyes off the display. He had watched this fleet grow from nothing over the past months. Ships had arrived from every corner of human space, massive dreadnoughts from the industrial worlds, fast attack cruisers from the frontier colonies, and support vessels from settlements so remote that most humans had never heard of them. Each ship carried a crew that had volunteered for this mission. Each crew member had watched the footage from New Eden. They had seen Kim So-young's final transmission, had witnessed an entire world being systematically murdered. They understood exactly why they were here. Communications Officer Lee Ye-jin looked up from her station with a puzzled expression. Sir, we're receiving multiple broadcasts from Hegemony Space. They're trying to open negotiations. What kind of negotiations? Kang asked. Surrender terms, sir. They're offering to withdraw from human space and pay reparations for New Eden. The bridge fell silent. Every officer turned to look at their admiral, waiting for his response. Kang Min-soo's expression remained as cold as the space around them. Tell them, he said quietly, that New Eden didn't get the option to negotiate. Neither do they. The Hegemony's panic was spreading across their territory like wildfire. What had begun as confident reports of human ship movements had transformed into terrified accounts of an impossible armada. Their long-range sensors now detected not 50,000 vessels, but over 200,000, with more arriving every hour. General Mordak of the Hegemony High Command called an emergency session of their War Council. The massive chamber filled with representatives from dozens of alien species, all of whom had voted to destroy New Eden 6 months earlier. How did we miss this? Demanded Ambassador Veltar, her insectoid features twitching with anxiety. Our intelligence services reported that humans had minimal military capacity. They lied to us, General Mordak replied, studying the latest reconnaissance data. Every human colony we thought was peaceful was actually a hidden weapons factory. Every civilian facility was designed for dual purposes. They've been planning for war while pretending to want peace. The truth was more complex than the hegemony realized. Humanity hadn't been lying about wanting peace. They had genuinely preferred diplomatic solutions and peaceful expansion, but they had also learned hard lessons during their first contact with hostile alien species 50 years earlier. Peace required strength, and strength required preparation. Captain Song Hye-jin commanded one of the smaller vessels in the human fleet, a fast attack cruiser called New Hope. Her ship had been built on the agricultural world where her family farmed rice. The same factories that produced farming equipment had secretly manufactured her ship's weapons systems. Captain, called her weapons officer, we're receiving target assignments from Fleet Command. Song Hye-jin studied the tactical data flowing across her screens. The human fleet had been divided into battle groups, each one larger than the entire hegemony navy. Their targets were military installations, weapons factories, and government centers throughout alien space. Understood, she replied. Signal the fleet. We're ready to proceed. The hegemony's attempts at negotiation became increasingly desperate. As the true size of the human armada became clear, by the 4th month of the fleet's assembly, their sensors detected over 400,000 human warships. By the 5th month, the number had reached 600,000. Ambassador Kretax, speaking for the Hegemony Alliance, broadcast on all frequencies. Humans of Earth, we acknowledge our error in attacking New Eden. We offer complete withdrawal from disputed territories and full reparations. Please respond to our peace overtures. Vice Admiral Kang Min-soo received each message personally. He read every desperate plea, every offer of compensation, every promise of future cooperation. Then he deleted them without response. "Sir," asked Communications Officer Li Yejin, "shouldn't we at least acknowledge their messages?" Kang looked. At the memorial display on his bridge, images of New Eden before and after the attack, children playing in parks, families celebrating holidays, students graduating from university, all gone, all murdered to make a political point about human expansion. They had 6 months to think about peace, he said. They chose to spend that time preparing for war instead. Now they get war. The final count settled at 700,000 human warships, the largest military force in galactic history. The fleet stretched across light years of space, a dark cloud of metal and weapons that blocked out the stars themselves. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had left behind comfortable lives to serve justice. Engineer Park Dong-hyun worked in the engine room of the massive dreadnought Vengeance. He had been designing water purification systems on a peaceful colony world when New Eden was attacked. Now he maintained the power systems that would fuel humanity's response. "My daughter was planning to study on New Eden," he told his assistant, while calibrating the ship's main reactor. "She was going to be a teacher. The aliens killed her dreams along with everyone else on that world." The hegemony's military leaders studied their tactical displays with growing despair. Even if they combined every warship from every member species, they would be outnumbered 10 to 1. The humans had built a force capable of conquering the entire galaxy. But conquest wasn't humanity's goal, justice was. Vice Admiral Kang Min-soo stood before the massive viewing port of his flagship, watching 700,000 vessels move in perfect formation toward hegemony space. Each ship represented humanity's commitment to ensuring that New Eden's fate would never befall another human world. The aliens had wanted to eliminate humanity before it became dangerous. They were about to learn that they were 50 years too late for that conversation. The storm was gathered. Now it was time for the thunder. The human fleet crossed into hegemony space on a Monday morning, and the galaxy would never be the same again. There were no dramatic speeches, no final warnings, no last chances for peace. The 700,000 ships simply arrived at their targets and began their work. Captain Song Ji-hai stood on the bridge of her destroyer, Justice, watching the fortress world of Zephyria through the main viewport. The planet had been the hegemony's military headquarters for over 1,000 years. Its surface was covered with weapons factories, training facilities, and command centers that coordinated alien military operations across dozens of star systems. "Captain," reported Weapons Officer Kim Jun-ho, "we're receiving evacuation confirmations from the civilian sectors. All non-military personnel have 12 hours to reach the designated safety zones." Song Ji-hai nodded. The human fleet had broadcast clear instructions to every world they approached. Civilian populations were given time to evacuate to specific areas that would be protected during the bombardment. Military personnel and government officials who had voted for New Eden's destruction were given no such courtesy. "Understood. Signal the fleet. We begin bombardment in exactly 12 hours. The wait was the hardest part. Song Ji-hai had grown up on New Eden, attending the same schools that were now radioactive craters. She had friends and family who died in the attack. But she forced herself to wait, to give innocent people time to escape what was coming. Across hegemony space, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Human battle groups surrounded planets that had contributed to New Eden's destruction, methodically preparing for what military historians would later call the most precise military campaign in galactic history. Admiral Kang Min-soo coordinated the operation from his flagship, watching status reports flow in from battle groups across enemy territory. Each target had been carefully selected based on intercepted communications that revealed which worlds had voted for the human cleansing program. "Sir," reported Intelligence Officer Lee Sang-min, "we've confirmed evacuation completion on Zephyria. Civilian casualties will be minimal." "Good," Kang replied. "Begin the bombardment." The first salvo from the human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Weapons that had been developed in secret for decades unleashed their fury on Zephyria's military installations. The planet's orbital defense platforms, which had seemed impregnable, were destroyed in minutes. Captain Song Ji-hai watched through her viewport as centuries of hegemony military might crumbled under sustained bombardment. The weapons factories that had produced the ships used to destroy New Eden were turned to molten metal. The command centers that had coordinated the attack were reduced to smoking craters. "Target their industrial sectors," came Admiral Kang's voice over the fleet communication channels. "I want nothing left that can build weapons or coordinate military operations." The bombardment continued for 3 full days. Not random destruction, but surgical precision that eliminated every military asset while leaving civilian areas untouched. The humans had studied Zephyria for months, mapping every installation, every factory, every government building. On the planet's surface, General Vexthor of the Hegemony Defense Force watched his military empire collapse. The underground bunkers that were supposed to be impregnable were being systematically destroyed by weapons that could penetrate kilometers of solid rock. "How are they doing this?" he asked his aide, watching another command center disappear in a flash of light. "Their weapons technology is beyond anything we've encountered," came the reply. "It's as if they've been preparing for this war for decades." They had been. Every human world had contributed something to this moment. New weapons designs, better armor, more efficient engines. The species that had seemed so focused on peaceful expansion had actually been building the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. The destruction of Zephyria was broadcast across the galaxy on all frequencies. Fleet Admiral Nam Tae-hoon's image appeared on billions of screens as the fortress world burned behind him. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice carrying the authority of 700,000 warships. "6 months ago, the Hegemony Alliance voted to judge humanity unworthy of existence among the stars. They chose New Eden as their example, murdering 2.3 million innocent people." The camera panned to show the devastation below: military installations in ruins, weapons, factories reduced to slag, government buildings collapsed into rubble. "We accept their judgment," Nam continued, "and we return it in kind. This is the price of genocide. This is what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness." The message was clear to every species watching. Humanity's previous peaceful behavior had been a choice, not a limitation. The species that had built beautiful colonies and magnificent cities could also build instruments of total war. Captain Park Min-seo commanded a heavy cruiser in the battle group, attacking the industrial world of Korath Prime. The planet had manufactured the plasma weapons used to destroy New Eden's cities. Now those same factories were being systematically eliminated. "Captain," called her tactical officer, "the planet's government is requesting terms of surrender." Park Min-seo looked at the tactical display showing Korath Prime's massive industrial complexes. Each one had contributed to the weapons that killed her friends on New Eden. "Tell them what they told New Eden," she replied coldly. "Nothing." The pattern repeated across dozens of worlds. The hegemony's military infrastructure, built over millennia, was being dismantled in a matter of months. Not conquered or occupied, but systematically destroyed so it could never threaten humanity again. Engineer Choi Woo-jin worked in the weapons bay of the dreadnought Retribution, maintaining the massive guns that had been firing continuously for days. He had been designing children's playgrounds on New Eden when the attack came. His wife and daughter had died in the first wave of bombardment. "Keep those weapons firing," he told his crew, his voice steady despite the tears on his face. "Every shot is for someone who can't fight back anymore." The hegemony's attempts to negotiate became increasingly desperate as world after world fell to human bombardment. They offered complete surrender, total disarmament, anything to stop the systematic destruction of their civilization. But the human fleet had learned a hard lesson from New Eden. Some crimes were too great for negotiation. Some acts required consequences that could never be forgotten. Communications Officer Lee Ye-jin received dozens of surrender offers each day, each more desperate than the last. She dutifully recorded them all, then filed them away unread. Decision had been made months ago, when the images of New Eden's destruction first reached Earth. "Sir," she reported to Admiral Kang, "the Hegemony High Council is offering complete capitulation. They're willing to accept any terms we propose." Kang looked at the memorial wall on his bridge. Thousands of faces from New Eden, from children to grandparents, all murdered for the crime of being human. "Tell them," he said quietly, "that dead children don't negotiate." The galaxy watched in terrified silence as humanity demonstrated the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. World after world fell to the human fleet, their military capabilities systematically erased from existence. The message was spreading through the galaxy. Humanity had been peaceful by choice, not weakness. That choice died with New Eden, and its killers were learning the true cost of their decision. The ceremony took place on a cold morning in March, exactly 3 years after the last shot was fired in the human hegemony war. The rebuilt New Eden. Memorial Hall stood where the old colony's government center had once been, its walls lined with the names of every person who had died in the original attack. Ambassador Velkar of the Alterian Republic knelt on the polished floor, her insectoid features showing what humans had learned to recognize as deep shame. Beside her, representatives from 43 other hegemony species waited in identical positions, their various forms united in a posture of complete submission. Fleet Admiral Nam Tai-hoon entered the hall wearing his dress uniform, the same one he had worn during humanity's first contact with aliens 50 years earlier. But the man who had once believed in peaceful coexistence was gone, replaced by someone who understood that peace required strength that others feared to challenge. 3 years ago, Nam began, his voice echoing in the silent hall. Your alliance voted to test whether humanity deserved to exist among the stars. You chose New Eden as your laboratory and 2.3 million innocent people as your test subjects. The alien representatives remained motionless, their heads bowed in acknowledgement of their crimes. Each species had signed the Treaty of New Eden, accepting full responsibility for the genocide and agreeing to the terms that would govern their future relationship with humanity. The test is now complete, Nam continued. You have your answer. Through the hall's massive windows, the alien delegates could see the orbital platforms that now surrounded New Eden. Hundreds of human warships moved in careful patterns, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. This was just a tiny fraction of the fleet that now patrolled every corner of human space. Captain Yu Yunji, now promoted to Sector Admiral, stood at the ceremony as a representative of the new order. Her responsibilities had grown far beyond commanding a single ship. She now oversaw the patrol routes of 50,000 vessels, ensuring that every former hegemony world remembered the lesson humanity had taught. The terms are simple, Nam announced to the gathered aliens. You will maintain no military forces beyond what is necessary for internal security. You will report all ship movements to human authorities. You will contribute raw materials and technology to human expansion efforts. And most importantly, you will remember. The Treaty of New Eden was unlike any document in galactic history. It wasn't a negotiated agreement between equals, but a set of conditions imposed by the victors on the defeated. The hegemony species had no choice but to accept. The alternative was complete extinction. Ambassador Kretax of the Zenthari Empire raised her head slightly, her translator device struggling to convey the depth of her species' regret. Admiral Nam, our children learn about New Eden in their first year of education. We have built monuments to the victims on every world. We will never forget what we did. Nam's expression didn't soften. Your children learn about New Eden because you chose to murder children. Your monuments exist because you chose to destroy a thriving world. These are not gestures of goodwill. They are reminders of your crimes. The rebuilding of New Eden had taken 2 years and resources from across human space. Every family who had lost someone in the attack was given the choice to relocate to the new colony. Many accepted, viewing it as a way to honor their loved one's memory. Kim Min-jun had been 8 years old when his parents died in the original attack. Now 11, he attended school in the same location where his mother had worked as a teacher. The new building was surrounded by defensive shields and protected by orbital weapons platforms. The peaceful colony of his early childhood would never exist again. I remember Mom reading to me in the garden, he told his new teacher, Park So-jin, during a memorial ceremony for the attack's victims. The aliens killed her because they were afraid of humans having nice things. Park So-jin, herself a survivor who had been visiting Earth during the attack, knelt beside her student. Your mother died because some people in the galaxy couldn't. Accept that humans deserve to live in peace. We make sure that never happens again. The human fleet that had once numbered 700,000 ships had not been reduced after the war's end. If anything, production had increased. Every human world now contributed to maintaining the largest military force in galactic history. Admiral Choi Dong-wook, now in his 70s, served as the fleet's primary strategist. His office on Lunar Command overlooked Earth, where massive shipyards continued producing new vessels. The lesson of New Eden was simple. Peace required overwhelming strength. "Sir," reported his aide, Commander Lee Jun-young, "the Galactic Council is requesting a reduction in human military presence. They claim it makes other species nervous." Choi laughed without humor. "Good, nervous is better than genocidal." He activated his communication system, broadcasting on all galactic frequencies. "This is Admiral Choi Dong-wook of the Human Defense Fleet." His voice reached every corner of known space. "Let me be clear about humanity's position. Attack 1. Human world, and we will darken every star in your space. This is not a threat. It's a promise we've already kept." The message was received by billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The species that had once dismissed humans as peaceful farmers and merchants now lived under the shadow of humanity's permanent military presence. Captain Song Hee-jin, now Admiral Song, commanded the patrol group responsible for monitoring former hegemony space. Her ships made regular visits to every world that had participated in New Eden's destruction, ensuring compliance with the treaty terms. "Admiral," reported her communications officer during a routine patrol of the Alterian system, "we're detecting unauthorized military construction on the 4th planet." Song's response was immediate. "Signal the orbital bombardment platforms. One precise strike on the facility, then broadcast a reminder about treaty violations. The weapon's flash could be seen from orbit, a brief star that erased the illegal military base and sent a clear message to anyone watching. The aliens had tested humanity's resolve once. They would not be given a second opportunity." Dr. Han Sua had returned to New Eden to establish a research center dedicated to studying the effects of the attack. Her work had a dual purpose, helping survivors heal while developing even more effective weapons for humanity's defense. "The Haidas psychological profiles are clear," she reported to the Colonial Council. "The attack was designed not just to kill but to terrorize. They wanted other human worlds to live in fear. Instead," replied Colonial Administrator Kim Tae-ho, "they taught us that fear works both ways." The memorial garden at the heart of New Eden featured a simple stone wall with 2,300,000 names carved into its surface. Visitors from across human space came to pay their respects, to remember the price of complacency, and to understand why the fleet still patrolled the stars. Young Lieutenant Park Min-ho, fresh from the Naval Academy, stood before the wall during his first visit to New Eden. His grandmother's name was carved near the bottom. She had been a librarian in the old colony. "Remember them," said his commanding officer, Captain Lee Hae-jin, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Remember why we serve." The 700,000 ships of humanity's fleet continued their eternal patrol, moving through hyperspace along routes that touched every corner of the galaxy. They were no longer just a military force. They were a promise made in blood and kept in steel. The galaxy had learned that humanity's previous kindness had been a choice, not a weakness. That choice died with New Eden, and its killers had paid the price. Now, under the watchful eyes of the largest military force in galactic history, a new kind of peace reigned among the stars. It was a peace built on strength, maintained by vigilance, and guaranteed by the understanding that some crimes could never be forgiven or forgotten. The lesson was complete. The galaxy would remember.